Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Litzar, joined by Vern Schellinger. Happy to answer your job search questions today. And we are starting out with a small team here, but we are expecting several more potentially. So we will have Ty be on the spot here. Ty, share with us. You said you had a couple of interviews.
Yes, I guess basically, it's kind of a broken record, but I was preparing for my interview and looking at questions that I could ask the interviewer, not too many, but some to show them that I prepared and that I wanted insight into the association. The one that I like the best is what caught your eye on my resume.
Okay.
Yeah.
What type of person succeeds in this job?
Do you know why the job is open?
I do not, and that was another one of my questions. I don't know why the job is open. I read the job description on both of them. I don't see who this person will report to.
No.
And maybe they'll tell me that in the introduction.
So what are the associations? If you
This is the Food Association.
Which one?
The Food Association.
The Food Association or Food Marketing Association?
Food Marketing Association.
Food Marketing Institute, FMI.
Yeah.
So I'm friendly with their HR person, Stephanie.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
She seems like a lovely person.
She is. She is.
Yeah.
You've talked to her already?
Yes, I've talked to her. I talked to her last week.
Oh, I see. And she's moving you forward?
Yes, I talked to her. The interview today is half hour with the hiring manager and a half hour with the HR person.
Great. What's the job?
The job is a member services assistant, which means I have to ask questions. It is not as much customer service in terms of direct. It is answering phones and member inquiries, but it's also admin too.
Yeah.
It's admin. Feel free to share anything you want about it. The associate. The other association is the National Society for Public Administration.
Okay.
And that is on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So one question I had for FMI was you have membership about 40,000 members. What do you foresee as future projections? You think that's a good question?
I think that's an interesting question. If you could absolutely ask that, but I would also ask more around that, but also what's the main goal of this role? Like, what are they trying to do? Because typically in member services, there's some version of recruitment and also retention and even engagement. So you may want to ask what are the growth projections, but also what are they hoping to achieve? What does success look like in your role?
Well, in reading the job description, basically this is a coordinator position. Basically, as they described it, is kind of like the glue to keep the membership department together in terms of coordination, like a lot of the moving parts, I guess. So it is admin too, in terms of doing things that keep people, I guess, on track. Project management also.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Asking what success looks like is certainly, one of the questions I always tell people to ask. And then, listen for their answer very closely. And then based on their answer, see if there's some way you can respond, either based on some experience you've had, how well your skills fit with what they just described.
Yeah. What are the biggest challenges facing the department? Why do they need this role?
Yeah.
Because when you get to the challenges, that's then there's a lot of color there. Like, we're having problems with this and problems with that, and we hope the team does this and the members get that, and we've had issues before with blah blah blah, and you can then speak into the things that they're looking for with what you know how to do.
Okay, great.
Are you clear on they're both associations, so they both have members, and hopefully the website would give you this information, but just are you clear on here's the value that we provide to our members? Here are the products, the services, here's how we help our members, here's why members pay us dues every year to remain a member of this association.
Is that a question I should ask? Is what's the value proposition, or what do you think, why do members join? What is the
Mhm.
most
That's
important benefit to members?
Yes.
Yeah. The second value proposition, maybe, don't want to use that word, but maybe it's just, why do members join? What's the value that you're providing that maintains, that has members continue to renew their membership each year?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Why do members join and stay? Is a way to say it.
Yeah. It's a good way to say it.
And what can I do to help support that?
Support that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions, Ty?
No, basically I was just going through these interview questions about that. And as far as like wrapping up an interview, would it be good to say, I'm excited about this opportunity and would like to come to work for you? Is there any additional information that you need from me? Is that a good way to end it?
Yeah, and you can also ask them, so now that we've spoken, what appeals to you about my candidacy? And do you have any hesitations that I can address?
Okay.
And the other thing I would say, Ty, is ask for the job. In other words, at the end of and again, the sequences here, what Shira just said, do that, obviously respond to that. And as it's wrapping up, make a statement to say, well, I've enjoyed this interview. It's given me even more insight into the role, and based on X, Y, Z, I think I'd be a great fit for the role. And I really look forward to the opportunity to join the company.
Okay, great.
Basically say, I want this job. And I believe I'm the right person for this job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Sandra, morning. Sandra. Can you hear us? Oh, having trouble with audio. Okay, got it.
Okay.
No worries. No worries. You're welcome to chat a question if you like, if that works for you. Okay, she'll come back in. Sil, good morning. How can we help you this morning?
Hi. What do you do with an annoying coworker? Just like busybody, watching other coworkers, just doing too much.
Can you be a little bit more specific?
She's just annoying to me. So it seems as if, she's like coming over to my computer or my cubicle, like giving me tasks to do, but she's not a team lead or a supervisor.
Okay.
And then when she gives me the task, it's almost as if she just stands there and watches me, to see, I guess, if I'm working the task. She's, like I said, she's not my supervisor. So I don't know if I should just ignore her or.
Do you both report to the same supervisor, or is she?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
So she acts as if she's my manager, but she's not.
That may be something you want to address with your manager.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would start there. That's why I wanted to know if you're both reported to the
Right.
same manager.
Yeah. That's really, I think, who should address this.
Yeah.
To say, is this appropriate for so-and-so to be assigning me tasks? Right. And that's really actually the question. Is it appropriate for them to be assigning me tasks?
Okay.
Yeah.
And if not, then you're going to want the manager to talk to this person.
Yeah. If the manager says yes, yes, it is appropriate for her to be assigning you work, then I'd steer the conversation towards what you were just telling us. In the way that she's directing me to do the work makes me feel uncomfortable. She's standing over my desk. I'm really not very productive.
Right.
In those situations, and
Right.
That's not helping me at all do my best to do this job as well as I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now with the link for this meeting, so will I have to fill out the form every time or?
Nope. You just had to fill it out one time.
Okay. And so
That's it.
I didn't get the chance to save the link for this meeting.
It should be, they should be emailed to you. Vern, isn't that what happened to you?
Yeah,
For
yeah,
everybody here?
yeah, it'll
Right.
get emailed to you.
Yeah, and then it actually lists all the different dates. Plus the the URL. So you'll have that URL for the next year. Next June is when I'll have to do a new link.
Okay.
For filling it out. Yeah. Helps protect our group here. Yeah. Okay. All right, Tavi, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. What can we do for you today?
I haven't thought of any questions yet, but
No questions?
I'm
Okay.
sure I'll think of some. So
Okay. All right. Any topics that people want to talk about? Maybe not a question, but just a general topic that we can address. Anything in your job search? Resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, networking, salary, engaging with recruiters, anything.
So, networking, how do we network in this virtual world, so to speak?
It's a big question. Vern, do you want to start topic?
Well, the good news is that networking in the virtual world is really no different than networking face to face. If you're doing networking effectively and properly, and you know how to network, that's the short answer. The long answer is there are differences between. Right now, we're in what's called a two-dimensional communication form, versus if you're face to face, if you're sitting down, having lunch with someone, it's three-dimensional. So there are things that impact that, but nothing so dramatic that you can't build a relationship. So here's an example I often use for when people ask me this question. If I were to ask you right now, what's the accomplishment you're most proud of in your career, in an effort to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you do and so forth and so on, would your answer be any different than if we were sitting down having coffee or at lunch? And I'm sure your answer wouldn't be any different. And so networking is really about building a relationship, thinking about it from a teaching and giving standpoint. In other words, you're trying to teach the other person as much as you can about who you are, what you do, certainly in the job search when you're networking, the types of jobs you're looking for, what your skills are. The more they know about you, the greater likelihood the other person can help you. But it's got to be a two-way street. You can't be, I'm going to teach you everything I need about you so you can help me, and that's the end of the story. That you've got to give back in some way. And the only way you can give back to someone else is to learn about them, who they are, what they're interested in, what their challenges are, what their goals are, what their aspirations are. Now, this all doesn't happen in one conversation. This takes, 6 to 8 to 10 conversations. But as you're building a relationship with someone, you get to know more and more about them. And that gives you opportunities to give back to them in some way.
When you're starting a networking meeting, a really great way to open is by asking the other person about them.
Them, yes.
You start with them. Don't let them start with you. Okay, so it's what some people call it being a go-giver. Give of yourself, right? Give to them. And part of that is actually inquiring, asking, being authentic, saying, "Who are you?" Just like Vern was saying.
Yeah.
And you can start with any topic. Hey, I looked at your LinkedIn profile. I noticed you've been working here for a few years. What do you enjoy about your role? And what do you do? And what keeps you up at night? Or you could do the personal thing. Where do you live? And family, whatever angle you want. But you definitely want to start by getting to know them and then see how you can help them. All right. You want to be, as much as possible, what some people call being a connector. Okay. So a connector is somebody who connects people with other people. Now, there's some of us who are kind of naturally inclined that way. I'm that way. Vern's that way, right? We can't help ourselves. We're always sort of connecting people. But we want to impart that to you, okay? To be thinking about making connections. Vern and I just did that this morning. He mentioned a particular need he had, and I was like, oh yeah, I know this woman. And then I shot him an email with her contact info. It's quick stuff like that. Just be thinking about, who you know that could be of service to somebody else. That's what it is to be a connector. But that means you got to be listening to people. You got to be asking them questions. You got to be listening for, hey, what's going on in their world? How can I be of service? What do they need? And you know more people than you think you do. You probably know people from all walks of life, not just your professional colleagues, neighbors, friends, people you go to church with. I mean, like all kinds of people, right? Who could be a connection point.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is you want to listen. You want to say, hey, would it be helpful if I connected you with this kind of person? They say yes, right away. Don't wait. You're gonna forget right that minute.
Yeah.
Send them an email, either with the contact information like I just did with Vern, because he needs to just keep this person's name in mind. He doesn't need to connect with her right this moment. Or if it's something that's an immediate, do what's called an e-introduction.
Yeah.
So you would, and you can do this two ways. Either you can just do it, an intro, like have the person's name and then the CC, or you can do something that's called a permission referral. A permission referral is where you want to introduce somebody, but you want to get permission from that person first. So for example, let's say the person I just mentioned to Vern, I know I don't have to do permission referral with her, but let's just say that I want to, I want to maximize her time. So I might say, hi, Jill, privately. Hi, Jill, I have a colleague named Vern Schellinger and he's looking for blah, 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 blah. Would it be okay if I introduced you to him? That's the highest level of networking, where you're connecting rather, or you're being completely honoring, right, of the other person's time. But if you already know, like you just know at a gut feeling, these people are going to want to meet, go ahead and do the referral, especially if it's colleagues, right, where you're not, typically when I do a permission referral, it's when I'm asking somebody of something. Like, let's say I wanted Jill to educate Vern on something. Okay, like really spend some time with him, take time out of her day to give him something. That is more where I would do permission, like, Jill, would this be okay? Would you mind? Would you do me a favor? Kind of thing. But if it's more like, I want to connect two colleagues because I feel like there's just going to be mutual interest, I would just say, hey, so-and-so, please meet so-and-so. Here's why. So-and-so, this is a little bit about so-and-so. So-and-so, here's about so-and-so. And just a couple of lines, and then, or even just one line, even if it's just, hey, Jill, let me just tell you about Vern. He's looking for blah, blah, blah. Here's one liner, happy networking. Hope you can find a good time to connect. But that would be really helpful.
And whenever you're connecting people, you're giving. You're giving them something that could be helpful to them. Just as in Shira's example, Jill may be very helpful to me. I don't know that yet, but if she is, it's the only reason that I would ever get to know Jill is because of my relationship with Shira. So that's the teaching and giving. Shira and I know each other pretty well, known each other over 20 years. And the other thing to recognize is once you develop a relationship with someone, so my relationship with Shira, I actually have access, given her permission, to her whole network. And there's people in her network that I don't know, just as this example she's talking about with Jill. And there's people in my network that Shira doesn't know that I can, if I'm talking to someone in my network and I really think Shira has a great, let's say BoomerWorks, this is somebody in DC who wants to start their own business, I'd tell them about Shira's BoomerWorks organization.
Yeah, so it's really just a matter of having a networking mindset, a connecting mindset. Try to be helpful to people. That's what we're trying to say here, right? Just give.
Yeah.
And hopefully people will give back to you, right? But that's not why you do it, right? You do it just to be helpful. Yeah, I can't tell you. And you never know, like, what kind of fruit's going to come out of that relationship. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard, and Vern talks about this all the time. He met somebody on this call moons ago, right, who ended up being a great connection for him. And there's a whole story around that. And that's just one small example. Another person on this call, again, moons ago, she heard about another networking meeting from somebody on this call. And in that networking meeting, she got her next job. Like, it's just we have oodles and oodles of stories,
Yeah.
but it's just really better of you putting yourself out there and saying, how can I be a resource to somebody else?
Yeah. The tagline for the relaunch of Contacts Count, which will come pretty soon, is the
Which is Vern's business, by the way.
the tagline on the logo is the power of human connection. And what Cher was just saying, those are examples of just human beings connecting with one another and good things happen.
Exactly. So hopefully that was expanding for you and helpful. Good. All right, Tabby.
Yeah, so expanding on networking, do you think like sometimes like it can become like overly like complicated, and sometimes like people overthink it, like because I guess the way you explained it is essentially like maybe asking a neighbor like when it snows, like whether you could use their snow blower or something like that, or um if you know a mechanic maybe in the community one lives in, like asking them whether they could take a look at your car or something.
Well, it's the other way around, actually. It's more like,
Neighbors helping neighbors out, you know.
yeah, it's actually off. It's not a matter of asking. I mean, you can ask for things, but it's a matter of giving.
Yeah.
It's more like,
Oh,
hey neighbor, I noticed you, I noticed something's wrong with your car. I have a referral for you. Hey, I've got this great mechanic you may be interested in. Get it? It's you offering something. It's you giving a resource to them. It's you recommending that they talk to somebody else that could solve that problem. That's really what being a connector is about.
And
How can you help them?
yeah, and when you do that, it builds the other person starts to like you, starts to, and obviously if the referral was a good one and they were really happy, then they trust you. You referred them to somebody, and
it's like Dale Carnegie. People know, people buy things from who they know, like, and trust.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Just always be thinking, how can I help somebody else? You see a need, be a help. Connection, a resource, something. Okay. Someone else had their hand up. Was it
I
Ty?
thought Ty had his hand up.
Well, I just had a quick comment about a quick story. I was on a call with a woman and a group up in New Jersey, and she connected me to 3 different association groups, 3 different networking groups. I had no idea that they even existed.
Right.
And now, and you're aware of some of them, sure, or probably all of them. And it's been a big help just being among those people, because it enables me to swim with the fish where I want to be in that school.
Mhm.
Yep.
And by the way, not for nothing, because we are in a virtual world, networking is so much more expansive now. You know, before it was all very regional. You had to pretty much show up at, you had to go downtown, you got to go to Tyson, you got to go here, you got to go there, you go, and traffic and all these things. And then you have to physically network with people. Now you could jump on a call anywhere in the world, you know, because most networking has gone online. I mean, yes, people are coming back to in person, but there are plenty of groups. Ours, this group, well, which has always been online. BoomerWorks used to do some in-person meetings. Now we're all online, and we're not alone. A lot of groups have permanently shifted to virtual.
Yeah.
So so for example, in the job seeker world, yes, I still refer people to the other groups locally, and I should bring up that list again for you guys, because those are the groups that I happen to know. But to Ty's point, there are groups all over the country that could be helpful. And by the way, tons and tons of jobs now are fully remote, which means you're no longer geographically bound. So you don't see, before, when we had networking groups, right? So let's say here in the DC area, people were pretty much looking for jobs in the DC area because you had to come into an office. Everything was local. You met local people, local employers, local. So local job search, local networking, local everything. Now, jobs have been expanded, right, to mostly remote. That means employers are looking for people all over the country. You have opportunities all over the country. So you can network with people from all over the country, right? So be getting online and looking for other job search support groups. other networking groups, not just people who are looking for jobs, but people who are in your sector, in your profession, where you could network with them and you can find a job anywhere. And then I'm not saying all jobs are remote, of course, there's some of theirs that are hybrid, but a good percentage are. So that's a very modern comment right now. I would not have said that 2 years ago.
Yeah. And certainly virtual is here to stay. It's not going away. So, you know, we'll be in this mode for, as far as I know,
Yeah.
you know, well into the future. So,
For sure,
yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Mm.
Morning, Pam.
Hey, good morning. Sorry
Hi.
I'm late. I was on another call, so apologize.
That's okay. You are up. If you, any questions that you have for us?
Not today, just dropping in to say hello and connect.
That's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of which, I was just sharing that there are other job search groups in the area. I know you, I think we had you talk about this last time, but we might have a new person here. Can you go ahead and talk about CNM
Sure.
in general, but then also talk about the accountability groups?
Sure. CNM Career Network Ministry is affiliated with McLean Bible Church, which is in McLean, Virginia. This organization's been in place for many years. They do a fabulous job with helping people understand and be acquainted with all the many facets of the job search. And I know for myself, coming back into looking for a job after many years, things really have changed in terms of strategy and how you go about things. So I strongly recommend the group. You can find them by searching Career Network Ministry in Meetup, and it will show all the many meetings that they have. They have resumes, personal marketing plans, which is not something people always are familiar with, how to do interviewing, elevator pitches, and the list goes on. So for those who are interested in federal jobs, there's also a component called Federal Career Connection. The other thing they do is they host accountability teams, and I have been an accountability team leader, and it is a 12-week group or team where you meet every week, and the leaders walk you through all the various aspects of job search. And this week is the last week for this session, and there will be a new session starting up in September. So I would strongly recommend it if that's not something you have done and you are in serious job search mode, which I assume you are if you're on this call. So.
And so I just put the general link for CNM in the chat, which if you're listening online and can't see it, it's meetup.com/M as in Mary, B as in boy, C as in Charlie, - C as in Charlie, N as in Nancy, M as in Mary. So MBC-CNM.
So I wanted more information about the accountability group. I'm working now, but you know, I'm going to be looking for, you know, my next promotion. So I'm gonna do that.
No, that's very appropriate. In fact, the group that I was co-leading, probably 3/4 of the people in our group had a job, and they were looking for another job. And so, yeah, it's totally appropriate. I would strongly recommend it for you. A lot of great networking, and you know, you find that people know people and they can connect you. And
so what's the information? Do I need to email somebody or?
yeah, let me put Gail's email in the chat for you. Gail Crockett would be the person I would recommend that you reach out to, so that she has your information and she knows you're interested when the time comes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So also, I'm going to pull up a quick slide here that has a list of at least the DC area local groups. I used to pull this up on HMM all the time, and I haven't done this in a long time. So see, you can see CNM over here. Let me just pull this up here. And feel free to take a picture. Of course, you can't click on these links, but you can, you know, type them in. 40 Plus meets every Monday morning from 10 to 11:30 Eastern. Career Confidence meets actually just like CNM. They meet almost every day of the week now. They have a lot of meetings. Their main meeting's on Saturday, but they've got a lot of different meetings. And then I'm not sure what POAC is doing, if anybody knows. They used to meet in person. I'm not sure if they've gone virtual.
They're virtual. I
They
still
are?
get their emails.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and then Bang is a small little job search group, and then Career Gateway is the only one of this list where there's a small fee. They have programs throughout the year for a total week long. So like it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday kind of a thing over a course of a couple of weeks. It's $75. So they particularly target the 50+ community, but I think, open to whomever.
One quick update, Shara, the 40+ group have transitioned their Monday morning meeting
Oh.
into a Monday evening meeting.
Oh,
So it's fairly recent, the last couple
Oh.
months or so.
oh,
So
thanks for letting me. Do you know what
Thanks
time?
for-
Do you know what time of day?
7, usually at 7 o'clock.
Okay, good to know. Thanks for the update.
Sure, no problem.
Great. Okay.
Now, what's the semesters like for the accountability program? Does it run every 3 months or a specific day that it starts and ends?
They usually run 3 sessions per year. We just finished the spring, summer, and then they'll go into the fall, and then they'll do the winter session. They last 12 weeks. And when you talk with Gail, she's going to get to know you, try to get an idea of which group based on what she knows about the different leaders. But she's also going to try to accommodate your schedule. And that's why there's groups some groups meet in the morning, some groups meet at night. If you're working, then an evening group may be the better option for you. And basically they have a Career Network Ministry has a job search handbook. And so there are topics in the job search handbook, and the topics that are part of the accountability team are going to follow along those topics, which also align with the sessions that CNM itself offers. So the accountability groups are great because you're in a group with other people who are doing the same thing you're doing, looking for another job. And you're kind of walking through them with this process step by step together. So you get that support, because job search is drudgery at times, it's just a long process. So you get that support. One of the things with my team we try to do is bring in guest speakers as well, not to conflict with the main speakers that CNM has, but over a 12-week period, it's good to keep people engaged and interested. If you can have job, like last night, Debbie Levin was my co-leader, and she had a connection with the lady who helps. She's a writer, and she would help people with their intro to their, if you've got an intro paragraph at the top of your resume, she's sort of creative way to write that. She talked about a formula she has for writing thank you notes that really engage people instead of just the thank you so much, which is a pretty standard thing, but she has a strategy to flip it and get the reader engaged. So, we just try to find people like that can help, tricks of the trade, so to speak. So does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Pam. This is great.
Sure.
And by the way, have you, I know that CNM has expanded their speaker roster in those last couple of years because they've been able to, go outside
Yes.
our little window here. Any resources that you have come across? Because of course you're a regular attendee. Any speakers, anything that you've been hearing recently, any tips, because you're hearing all the different,
Yeah.
areas of expertise.
The things I would say that are tried and true, and they're not really new, and I know sure you talk about it, is really being prepared for that interview, making sure you're doing your research, the company, looking at the news releases, kind of going that extra mile, making sure that you've got your, STAR stories, SAR stories, whichever acronym you're using, that you are on point with those, and that you can just do them with comfort and ease. And so writing them out, practicing them, doing a mock interview. I mean, I had somebody do a mock interview for me one time, and She asked questions that I wasn't expecting based on the job description, like in the rehearsal. And when I actually went into the interview, I drew upon some of the feedback she gave me, and it, really had a positive impact. I made it all the way to the final selection, and they decided to go with somebody who was more familiar with their product.
And I got to tell you, kind of funny, you mentioned that last thing. So I want to springboard off of that.
Sure. No,
We
great.
want somebody who is more familiar with ...
Yes.
This happens all the time. Most employers are looking for people who have experience with their industry, their sector, what they do, how they do it, because everybody's trying to minimize their risk. I say this all the time, but even as a recruiter, I mean, just now, literally, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Signed on the dotted line. I did a search for somebody. We made an offer. There were 9. It was a lot. I don't normally send in 9 candidates, but whatever, right? So it's 9 candidates, all super qualified people. The person, actually the top 2 people, but obviously the top person that they focused on came exactly from their sector. It wasn't 100% requirement going in, but the fact that that person showed up made them go right to the top. Okay. It was very, very helpful. Happens all the time. And so it's not to say you can't career shift. I mean, that happens too. But please know that especially when you're applying to a job online, and there's tons of competition, and the employer says XYZ experience or industry strongly preferred, they mean it. They mean that they are literally going to prefer people who have that experience, which means that you're going to have to somehow convince them that you are minimizing their risk, whether that is showcasing on your resume or your cover letter, any experience, any familiarity you have with their industry, interest you have, connections you have in the field, anything you could, even if you do get an interview, the research if you do research. In fact, that I will tell you this, in this particular search, there were several people who didn't come from the sector, but man, did they research it, right? That can help too, right? They were like, oh, what about this? And what about that? And to put your effort forward to say, no, I may not come from your sector, but I've done my homework and I've learned these challenges or those challenges, or you ask questions about those challenges and those just showing that you are hungry, you're interested, you're committed, connecting the dots. You're not just a candidate who just has a resume. You actually are considering their industry. And I mention that because most job seekers don't think about industry. Most job seekers think about what I call their lane, your profession. I'm an accountant, I'm an HR person, I'm a marketing person, I'm a customer service person. Well, that's great. Your lane is important because that's the job, but the industry for which you're doing it matters also. Because if you are a marketer in the nonprofit realm, that's very different than working for a Fortune 500 company. It's similar skills, and yet how you do it, who you're doing it for, it's totally different. The business challenges are completely different, and employers know that. And because they're trying to minimize their risk and they don't have a lot of time to train, like at all, really, these days, they would prefer that somebody understands where they're coming from. Even if it doesn't seem like a requirement, that's typically how they lean.
I've had that in 2 jobs. In fact, that job, I was very familiar with the company. It was a school accreditation. I did site visits. I was very familiar, but I hadn't recently done it because I had gone from a school-based job to working for an association. So I've been away from it, for maybe 7 years. And so that was really and I knew somebody very high up in their organ, like one of their vice presidents. So, I knew somebody pretty high up in the food chain, but this person was working with that particular thing in the immediate. And so that was the thing that separated. She called me the hiring manager, she called me herself instead of having HR do it, just to say, you were a great candidate, but this is what we've decided, but I wanted to call you personally. Right. So, and another job for training, I had everything she wanted, but I hadn't recently written a training course on leadership development. And she said, I've only got one senior manager position. If I had more than one, I would hire you. She said, I like you, but I need somebody who's doing it now. And I'm like,
Your job is to minimize the employer's
okay, yes.
risk. That's it. You
Don't
have
get
your needs.
discouraged. Yeah,
You have your needs. They've got their needs,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Don't take it personally. Just say, okay. And if I can help you in the future, don't burn any bridges. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. So, you never know. They might circle back.
And it really isn't personal. And I'm not saying that glibly, really, it just isn't.
It's
It's a
not.
business need for them. They're hiring you because you can help them solve their problems.
Mhm.
That's where they're coming from. Now you have a different perspective. You have career goals and interests and culture and money and all these different things. That's not their, they have business needs. Can you do this job well? Do you understand what we do? Do you understand how to fulfill our, can you fit in with our culture? All these different things. Those are their needs, right? So your job is to really figure it out. Now, I'm going to share another link. I've shared this before, but worth sharing again. On my website, we've got a bunch of free videos. You go to purposefulhire.com, go to the job seeker tab. Shira speaks to job seekers. A lot of videos here, including the interviews that land the offer. Okay. So what Pam was talking about now, there's a whole interview on this. All of these are previous presentations I've done to job seeker groups like CNM. In fact, this one actually was for CNM and should give you a lot of rich information. I will put the link in the chat as well.
One other location, CNM offers a session on Tuesday evenings with Kevin Conifee. And Kevin also does a interview practice group on Tuesday afternoons from 2 to 4:30. If you're interested in that, go to that session on Tuesday night and let him know you're interested, and he'll add you to his listserv, which contains the Zoom link for those practice groups. It's a long time, 2.5 hours, but my experience was wonderful because it really helped. Things can go to automaticity where you kind of get in a rhythm where you've kind of got that star story formula in your head and you've done it enough. You've heard enough people do it that it becomes more automatic. Tell us about a time when blah, blah, blah. Well, yes, here's, there was a time, and you say, yes, I believe in blah, blah, blah. And for example, you can, address what the topic is, but then go right into your example of your star story, and he'll help you make sure you're not too long in your answer, which he helped me a lot with that, getting it down to, 45 seconds to 1.5 minutes answer. Otherwise, go ahead, Karen.
Something else along those lines. You just mentioned the star story. I'd like to take a second and just review those with folks. Okay. So there are lots of different formulas. It's all the same concept. It's telling a story, but I actually want to break this down for a sec. Okay. Because we normally gloss over it. So Pam just mentioned the classic, which is STAR: situation, task, action, result. Okay. So you give the backstory of what was the situation, what was going on, what was the task that you were assigned to do, or the problem that you were solving? What is the action that you took, and what was the result? That's the classic, and it's easy to remember because it's an acronym, STAR. Some people call it SAR, situation, action, result. PAR, problem, action, result. CAR, challenge, action, result. There is one that I happen to like, okay? And it's called CAB. It's actually challenge, action, benefit. And what it is you describe the challenge the organization was facing, the action you took to solve it, and then the benefit is how the organization benefited from what you did. It's a little different than results. It's the benefit. So I've found that people kind of like that one. Slight different twist might be helpful for you. Challenge, action, benefit. Okay, but in general, it's really about telling a good story. And you want to come into your interviews with an arsenal of those. I'd say solid 3 to 5 of those stories, because any one of them you can kind of turn a quarter turn to the right or quarter turn to the left. Okay. Because any one of those stories there's a lot of skills baked into those stories. So if you have your stories ready to go, generally speaking, if somebody asks you a question, hey, describe a time when you used your critical thinking skills, you know, you failed, you had to do time management. I don't know, pick a skill, a behavioral skill. Then oftentimes you can go back to that arsenal and say, well, you know, there was this one time, and then you pull an element of that story out to address that particular need. But that means you got to know your stories really well. And you got to have them be like a fly on the wall, watching, like, why do you think we all like stories? Why do we like movies? Why do we like books? Right? We get caught up into the drama of it. Oh, think of any movie you've ever seen. There's always a backstory. That's always how they start, where they're contextualizing everything, getting you into the setting. Oh, this is a movie in the 1800s and it's in the aristocracy and you're like, okay, I'm in the story. Now there's going to build you get the characters and you build up some tension. The tension is the problem that needs to be solved. There's always a hero or a heroine or whomever, and that's you solving this, doing something, cape on your back, flying around the world, right? And then there's a resolution. Okay, right? This is how it got resolved, the benefit, the result, whatever. That's the point. And that's how the person is drawn in to your story. That's why it's so important to tell a story rather than a generic example. When people say something generic, they're saying, well, the employer says, tell me about a time you did something. And you say, well, generally speaking, I do blah, blah, blah. And that's too generic. It's too, it's too theoretical almost. They're looking for a specific case in point. Once upon a time in a land far, far away, this is what happened. Okay. The sky was blue. There were 3 clouds in it. It was a real story. And there's a credibility in that. They can trust you in that because they can tell that it's your real story, right? That you're not just making it up. That you're not just generically saying, yeah, I'm really good at this, or I'm really good at that, or generally this. Does that make sense? Be very specific. Find your stories.
One of the other things Pam said, that going to the networking interview workshop helped her keep her answers shorter rather than longer. And that's the other thing, when you write the stories out in whatever acronym you use, you usually, a paragraph or 2, and you rehearse those, and that's going to keep your answer to the question within that 45 seconds to a minute, maybe a little bit longer, depending on the story. But you certainly don't want to, be telling a story 5 minutes, because that'll kill the interview for you.
One of my tricks, good old fashioned index cards.
Yeah.
So I've got the questions written out with the answers for some of the more common ones, at least the ones that Kevin asked in his session. And, the great thing was when he asked somebody else a question, I got to hear their answer. And sometimes hearing someone else's answer to the question really made me think about, well, how can I answer that question? And I'd be taking notes of, oh, I could do this story or I could do this story, but, kind of feeding off that, synergy, the great overused word, but, just like Shira adding on to something I said, there's great energy in being able to hear what other people are saying to get it to spark ideas.
That's exactly right. And so that's the other analogy I'd like to use is that I believe that interviews should be a game of tennis, not racquetball. Tennis, back, forth, Q, A, Q, A. This, they say something, you say something, oh, then you springboard off of it. Racquetball, the way that most people do interviews is the employer is hitting the ball, you're the wall. Right? Q, Q, Q. And you're like, okay, I'm going to take it. But when you can continue the conversation, that makes it a lot richer. Right? And then you're involved and you're engaged and you're in the flow of things with them. Good. Thank you, Pam. This is really, really helpful.
Sure.
And then I was going to say also, Career Network Ministry is meeting in person now, I think every 2 weeks.
They are. That's correct, Sil. That is correct. They are.
Sandra?
Yeah, good morning. I wanted to talk about the video interview that I had mentioned last Friday. So it was through HireVue, and like you said, Vern, it does give you a chance to practice it a few times, which is good. And then even when you get to the point where you're ready to answer their questions, this particular agency, it was 5 questions. and they were behavioral based, and they do give you like 30 seconds to prepare your answers, and you also get a chance to change your answer. So if I record it and then I think, oh, I want to change it, but I can do that before I go to the next question. I think, and they gave you up to 3 minutes, which I didn't need, but that is the length of time. But it was still a very different dynamic. I think what I would have done going forward is I definitely would have, even though you hear these behavior questions all the time with, like in Kevin's group on Tuesday afternoon, I would have written them out, and then I would have been more, I need to go back on the job rec, again, not just review it, but also make sure I know what star stories I'm going to use if those questions come about. And that would have probably lessened the stress for me. But I did just want to provide an update on what my personal experience was with higher view.
Yeah. And Sandra, so you did the video interview. So now you're waiting to hear back. Is that, yeah.
Correct. They will,
Yeah.
they'll get back with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder how many employers are going to start using that. I have always wondered that. But it's an added step, and I don't even think a lot of employers even know that it exists, frankly, especially
Yeah.
smaller groups. So
Yeah, I had to do one for NRO, National Reconnaissance Office. So yeah, it was nerve wracking. Like she said, we could, do our answer again if we weren't satisfied with it, but it was timed for me.
I put a link in the chat. The guest speaker that we had last evening shared this. It's a TED Talk about how you show up in your body language. So Sandra, when you started talking about the video interview, it made me think of that. So I don't know if that TED Talk will be a benefit, but if it is, I hope it will benefit. So
Thank you. I will check that out. Thank you, Pam.
sure.
One tip that I have is, and most people might already know this, is when you're doing a Zoom or a video interview is I put little stickies on my computer to remind me, especially to smile, look at the camera, so I don't catch myself looking away from the camera. I also put key points and story prompts on there, just one or two words. So in case I get, frozen or something, I can look up there and grab it quickly.
Yeah, that's a great idea. My mentor, who's GS-15 in the government, she had this whole big board that sat behind like her computer. So yeah, people do that. And I think she might have been on the phone for that interview, but yeah, with like her stories up there for interview questions.
yeah, and smiling is huge. Really, it is. It's huge. I mean, and a lot of people have some challenge with this, right? Because not everybody's a natural smiler. Some people have a more stoic expression, especially in Zoom. All you've got is this. You don't have the rest of your body language to use. So that smile and looking at the camera. So, with Zoom, you can, and everybody's been pretty good about this here, but you want to make sure that you're looking at the camera. How you do that is you minimize your Zoom screen. It turns that person into a little box. You move that box right under your webcam, and then it looks like you're looking at them. Okay. That looks like eye contact. And then couple that with a smile, couple that with a little bit of movement, not a ton, but a little bit. And even you notice how I use my hand. I mean, I'm a hand talker anyway, but if I were in person, I wouldn't care where my hands are, but I intentionally lift my hands up so you can see them, right? If I'm trying to make a point, because it adds to the dynamic of what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying you have to do that, but if you are a hand talker, make sure that people can see what you're doing.
I've been coached over and over again. One of the biggest things that you can bring to the interview is enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
Be enthusiastic, whatever. Especially, I think when you tell the star story and the punchline comes, is how it ended up.
Right.
This is fantastic.
That's right. They're waiting for the result. Mm-hmm. And even if the result wasn't fantastic, you can still say, you can still show somebody how you move the football down the field. That's all they're looking for. How did you make an impact? And you know what? And even if it didn't turn out beautifully at the end, what did you learn from it? What did you learn? Always important. People want humility. You know, they want to know that you're learning that. Vern, anything you want to add to all this?
One of the other things when we talked about interviews, and again, we talked about taking too much time to answer, you know, a 5-minute answer to an interview question. The other thing to think about is you've got, you know, typically, let's say it's an hour interview. The longer you talk on any one question, it cuts into the whole 60 minutes. So the shorter your answers, the more questions you can ask. It makes it more of conversational, and there will be a better, more effective exchange of information over those 60 minutes than if you're talking too much during the interview. So it maximizes the effectiveness and efficiency of the interview, both for the interviewer, but mostly for you. And again, I'll go back to, you know, we talked about networking, teaching, and giving. In an interview, you're trying to teach this other person as much as you can about who you are, what your skills are, why you're the right fit for the job. So there's this whole kind of, you know, preparation in your plan for the interview. Just like you're saying, you know, have your stories down, make sure you know them cold. Well, think about the entire interview and in terms of how you approach it, and use that time most effectively.
All right, Ty, any other comments?
I have another question I'd like to loop back in terms of earlier discussion. Questions for the person interviewing you, specifically the HR person. Would a good question be for the HR person? What do you like most about working at the association? Is
Yeah,
that
sure.
a valid question?
Yep.
And what other questions would you suggest? I have a few other ones here, but versus the hiring manager, because I know some of the questions a hiring manager will be able to answer a lot better than the HR person.
Well, the HR person might be the better person to ask about the culture of the organization.
Okay.
Yeah, culture is definitely good for HR, for sure.
Yeah. And again, depending on where you're at in the interviewing process, you know, if it's the first interview, I would not be asking the HR person about the benefits or that type of thing. You know, those types of questions should come towards the end of the process. Ask the HR person about culture. Can she give you, you know, I read on the website that the values of the organization are XYZ. Can you give an example of you know, when X happens within this organization, or a story? Which in my mind, if I'm the interviewee, I want as much confirmation that what I'm seeing, you know, on the website and what people are saying about the organization in terms of their values, actually, you know, those are the actual values that exist, you know, day to day in the organization. Because that's all culture is. It's the behaviors, and it's the way things get done within every organization. And every organization has a culture, whether it's good, bad, they have a culture. And you want to make sure that the culture that, you know, if you're going to accept the job, you want to do the best you can to make sure that you've done your due diligence and you're 90% sure, 95% sure that this culture is going to be a good match and a good fit for you.
Now that they sent me a copy of their benefits package, you know, what it is, you know, if that question should come up, do you have any questions about the benefits? Is that something that I should answer?
Yeah. If they do ask that question, then yeah, it certainly, I mean, I'm assuming you read it and you got an idea what the benefits are. But if they ask that specifically, then it's okay.
Yeah, for sure. And you can ask for the benefits, you know, toward the end of the process, and can look at them and evaluate them, ask questions about them, and also ask about where you can negotiate. Because, for example, maybe you can get an extra week of vacation I mean, that's actually one of the easiest places to negotiate. Or, you know, I don't know, but the hybrid role and parking or whatever, but definitely look at really understand the benefits and align them with what you used to get. And if there's a difference, maybe they can compensate that in salary.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm. Cool. All right, well, I'm looking at the time here. So we'll go ahead and wrap up. And as per usual, we'll go ahead and do a prayer call for those who want to stay on. And otherwise, I will look forward to seeing everybody next week. All right, have a blessed day.